Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show. This is your host, Joe Filetta Jr. So happy to be here with you on this another beautiful day. I tell you, we have so much to celebrate, and especially in our marriages. And yes, marriage can be tough, but we must remember that marriage is for keeps and that we should work hard and diligently to keep it strong. And yes, sometimes there are situations and circumstances in which we have to say goodbye to our marriage, but we should try everything we can to keep it sizzling hot. And that's what we're here for at the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show and Lifestyle Therapy and Coaching, for which I'm the owner of and happy to be of service to this community, the worldwide community. So we're glad to be able to help serve couples who are challenged and having difficulties in their relationships. I'm excited today because we're going to have a great speaker with us today, Corrine Fargo, who's going to share with us about getting things lit up in the bedroom. She's a sex education specialist, is what I call her, for couples. So I think you're going to really enjoy her today. And so we will bring her on in a moment. But for now, I'm trying to bring in my guest host, my co-host, Dr. Davis. If I could figure out how to get Dr. Davis in here, I will be happy. I'd be happy. But unfortunately, Dr. Davis, I struggle so much with this technology thing that from time to time, it just doesn't work like you want it to work. But that's all right. Ain't that all right? We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work by the grace of God. So here we go. Give me a second here, Dr. Davis. And we're going to bring you in. And one more second here. Okay. That ain't working like I want it to work. But anyway, it's going to still have you on there. Oh, no, that ain't going to work. Oh, Lord. All right, here we go. I'm going to actually do it like this. I have so much to learn about this thing, but I'm glad to be here and doing it and figuring it out. How's your day going, even though we can't see you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Another day alive is another day to be glad about, rejoice in it, and be glad. So I'm here. I'm grateful. I'm excited, and let's get this party started.
Let's get it started, huh? Okay, okay. All right. Well, if I could get this party started, I'd be a happy camper. All right, give me a
Much
second.
like marriage.
What'd you say?
I said much like marriage, right?
You know, you don't. There's nobody got it perfect, do they? We
Absolutely.
have to keep working on our marriages. All right. So I don't know, Dr. Davis, why this is not working for me today. I had a different setup yesterday, and see how that works. You mess up one setup, you get another one. So I know how to do this. All right, I know how to do this. Give me a second here. And here we go. Okay, I think this is going to work. We're going to try. All right, we're talking about sex today, Dr. Davis. It's a tough
I'm
subject.
excited. I'm excited.
Subject. I don't know. A lot of couples struggle with the sex topic. You know why?
I do.
Why?
A lot of couples struggle with sex because when things get to doing whatever, that's the first thing we salvage. That's the first thing that emotional connection is missing. So
Mm-hmm.
sex is the first thing to be salvaged
Mm-mm-mm.
because that speaks to a level of intimacy most people just don't have when they're mad.
Right. Right. So it's important for us to make sure that we keep that part of our marriage going strong. But it's
Absolutely.
it's like you said, it's the first part to go. Uh, why do you think that's the case?
I consider it this analogy, right? Like we're out in the ocean and the boat has started to take in water. Our marriage has started to take in problems. You got to start, getting that weight off so you don't sink, so you don't drown. And so the first thing, the heaviest thing, right, is that emotional connection, that physical touch. So you know what? Because we're trying to salvage it, I'm staying in this boat because on the other side of this boat is, me drowning because I can't swim. So I'm going to start, getting rid of stuff. So the first thing I got rid of is sex. I'm still in the house. That's the least you can ask of me. Like, that's the least I can give you is I'm still in the house.
You're still in the house.
While I'm in the house. That's extra. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Well,
shedding weight some kind of way.
The sad thing about that is that, what's marriage without sex, right? I mean, that's what we got married for, right? So when we're having problems, sex leaves. So what does that mean about the marriage? Is the marriage over?
In some instances, it can be, but what you said prior to that, I think, was foundational and key. Sex was reserved for married couples. So when you start to have sex outside of your marriage, or you fornicating, doing all that good stuff, you really don't see the benefit of sex in your marriage. So it's all kind of calculated and it's a part of the great plan. But when you do things out of order, you lose the benefit of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. That's true. When you do things out of order. And I think what happens, that causes so many problems in our marriages because of all the stuff we're doing out of order before we get married.
Absolutely.
All those, they call them soul ties we done formed before we got married. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think, depending on, soul ties, believe it or not, can be, however you interpret it, can be cultural. Some people believe that, soul ties are every time you sleep with somebody. From a scientific perspective, you carry a piece of that person around with you for a long time. But for me, a soul tie is just a phrase that people use to refer to a spiritual connection between two people as a result of fornicating. In many cases, soul ties have said to exist after two people have been, physically intimate, and some people even take it as far as a spiritual intimacy. So in others, it's said to form after an intensely close, as I said, spiritual intimacy, or an emotional relationship. And so when you think about soul ties, the most important part of that is soul ties are not easy to be broken. Spiritual work is typically required to basically break an unhealthy tie that holds you back. So it's a requirement for you at that point to kind of take your soul to the laundromat, right? To give it to Jesus so he can kind of wash all of that stuff off. But yeah, soul ties are true indeed. It's deeply embedded into your soul. And I think when you think about something being deeply embedded, like, how can I shake this? You've been knitted together. It's a spiritual connection. And so again, yeah, soul ties are real. They're true things, but culturally they can mean several different things.
Mm-hmm. The connection that we have with another human being sexually is something that I believe God intended for us to have with just one person.
Absolutely.
And there are some species that do that. However, in our imperfect world, that is not always the case. And unfortunately, oftentimes in our youth, we expend of that privilege because of, I guess, our thoughts that this is not that important, that preserving that is not that important, that getting the attention or the affection or having a good time is more important than preserving yourself or your marriage. What is, in your opinion, what is the wisdom of preserving yourself? Someone might be listening today who hasn't engaged in sex and is curious and longing for that experience. What would you say to a woman or a young man who is, in the valley of decision about waiting or not? Uh-oh, why can't we hear you now? Are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, this is a very interesting topic for me because I have a 16-year-old daughter. And I thought about the whole promise ring thing, but waiting for sex, the benefits for waiting for sex, relationship stability is one. Um, relationship satisfaction is 20% higher for people who wait to have sex. Sexual quality of the relationship is 15% better. And these numbers are like real live statistics, right? And so how do I know that? Is because when you go into a marriage having done something, or a relationship having done something that you weren't supposed to do in the very beginning, you have all of these false examples in which you measure sex up against. And so when you wait and you join this wonderful ride with someone who your souls are connected, you really put yourself in a great place where you don't have to compare it against anything, because this is all you know. You think about the benefits, the health benefits of it, not acquiring STIs. You think about like what, again, soul ties, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to, because some people engage into sex for various reasons. And so if that reason isn't love, it could really put you in a bad place, because some people engage into sex, out of boredom. So you're trying to find love, but this person is bored. And another reason for waiting is it allows you to connect in a more meaningful way. Waiting gives you something to look forward to. It helps you build a strong foundation for a healthy, long relationship. And then it teaches you, the big part for me mentally is it teaches you how to meet that person's needs in other ways. If you start off learning to meet this person's needs in ways other than, sex, it really strengthens the relationship. And as I tell my daughter, it weeds out the people who aren't really interested in the long term. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes guys are just in it for the thrill, and sometimes women are just in it for the thrill. But imagine telling that person you have to wait. You're really gonna see if that person is, really there with you, or, whatever it takes. And then it builds trust. It builds trust. And lastly, it's a way to show, your values to the other person. So again, several reasons, but those are the ones that sticks out to me, that if I could do this thing all over again, I would definitely have waited.
Yeah, well, it's easier said than done, right?
Absolutely.
There really are some key strategies to waiting. We have to have a interview, a show on that, on how do you wait, and if you got started, how do you stop, and get it started. Do it the right way the next time. So some very good stuff. But now we're really specifically talking to couples who are already married, and even though they're married, they're not having as much sex as they like to have, as they signed up for. And this, of course, is very frustrating for everyone involved. And I think that couples need to make sure that this part of their marriage is something they maintain and take care of, and make sure that it is satisfied. Because what happens to a couple when sex goes out the window, Dr. Davis?
I mean, what's left? I mean, of course we can communicate, but when you ain't getting it, sometimes you go on a hunt. We as human beings, we desire the one thing that we don't have. And granted, nothing should make a person cheap, but what am I standing for? We're arguing, we're not having sex. What am I here for? We're not compatible, we're not cordial. What am I here for? We're not communicating. It's no community. You're not creditable. There's no compassion. All these pillars.
Right. That was an interesting comment, though, last night that came out in our Sizzling Hot Rehab session, that someone said that they've learned that the things they want from their spouse are actually things that they have caused and created too. So it's really important for us to recognize that we may not be getting the sexual satisfaction we desire in our marriage, and that may have a lot to do with what we're giving our spouse or what we're not giving our spouse. And so a lot of times we blame, we complain, we argue and we fight over things in our relationships. But in reality, the problem is me. I'm the one that's not working very hard to create the intimacy that is, you know, I mean, it's hard to understand how to create intimacy. That's why when couples start having sex before they get married, they really are short circuiting that intimacy building process. You feel me on that? And so they really don't know how to build intimacy. They know how to have sex, but they don't know how to build intimacy. And intimacy comes through conversation. Intimacy comes in sharing life together. Intimacy comes in facing problems together and solving problems together. Uh, Intimacy comes through experience. And so, unfortunately, if you don't know how to communicate, if you have problems with problem solving, you're going to have, if you get angry all the time, lose your temper, man, you're going to have some problems with intimacy. So it's important to understand that your sexual relationship and your relationship is built on your relationship, on the quality of your relationship, the sense of satisfaction that both of you experience. I'm so grateful to have you, Dr. Davis, here, psychologist, to give us your insights on things. Dr. Davis is my marriage and family therapy intern. She's working on another degree because she's just going to be an educated black woman. That's what I'm talking about. And she is preparing herself for service. And so I'm so grateful for the work she's doing. She's already served us in the military, put her life on the line for us, and so now she's going to take it to another level and bring healing. And so we thank you, Dr. Davis, for being a part of the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show and the lifestyle therapy and coaching. I feel like my clients are blessed to have you talking to them and encouraging them on their journey. So thank you for being there with us.
The pleasure is truly all mine. Just kind of like what we shared last night. You cannot wholeheartedly be in a process like this and not walk away with something for your own toolkit. Mm-hmm. It's imperative to realize that there is not a perfect marriage, and in your pursuit to find perfection, you're gonna find yourself in a very flagrant, uncomfortable place. Mm-hmm. And so, this process, be it the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show or just, therapy or whatever the case may be, you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about your community, and you learn so much about the need to continuously be a servant for your mm-hmm. people in your community. So truly the pleasure is all mine.
Awesome. Well, I am grateful to share this with you. And it's amazing how God works, isn't it? How he brings puts you in an intersection with other people, and God is just amazing. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be here with you. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and see if we can tune in to hear Corrine Farrago's interview. Wonderful interview with her. Now I want to introduce her if I can, but unfortunately life is difficult, isn't it? And so here we go. I thought I had it sitting right here. Now it's not here anymore. So we're going to go ahead and try another method of doing this. Okay. I think one of my biggest problems is that I have so many tabs open. That's probably my big issue right there. So give me 1 second. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that gray space again before we cue her up. So go ahead, give us that your thoughts about the gray space again.
Sure. So what is gray space? We talked about this in the initial show, and when you really consider grace, right? And then, of course, the word space. You think about how sometimes your marriage, your relationships, whatever relationship it may be, even one with your children may require you to be in a place where you're a little bit more forgiving. You can't say you are a forgiver, but you don't have grace. Grace is kind of like the first cousin to forgiveness. All right. Grace space happens when we allow another person to be human and to make mistakes and without throwing them out to the wolves to be eaten alive. Grace space happens when you allow a person to be imperfect, because everybody has their own, idiosyncrasies, if you will. When we give grace, it's an internal decision. It's an internal choice that we've given to forgive somebody and let it go without addressing it. Grace space says you did something wrong, but I know you did something wrong, and you did something wrong, but you know what? We're not going to talk about it. And when I get in the mindset of thinking about grace space, I always think about my relationship with God, right? I sin every day. I sin every day and fall short of the glory of God. But God doesn't treat me like that. He's not fickle like we are as human beings. But it's amazing how we expect that amount of grace from God, right? We expect to be forgiven of our sins, but when we come home in our house with our partner, with the person who God has given us, we hold them accountable.
Yep.
So yes. Grace needs to be the tool that we choose to use to handle our spouse's human nature, because our spouses are not perfect. And so the grace. 2 questions that I always ask people for grace space is, did it hurt you, or did it just irritate you? Does this need to be corrected or simply accepted? Because you have to figure out, am I correcting or am I accepting? Grace space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the truth is that if you don't have grace in your relationship, you're not going to forgive each other. And if you're not going to forgive each other, you're not going to make it. And if you don't make it, I mean, even if you make it and you don't give grace, it's just going to be a horrible experience, because all of us have sinned and come short. All of us have broken our promises, So all of us have lied, So we just need God's grace, and we need each other's grace, and relationships that have that grace are really much better relationships. Yes, indeed. Thank you for sharing that. It's very important for, for folks to really recognize that grace is so important in their relationships. Can't expect somebody to be perfect if you're not perfect. Isn't that right?
Amen.
All right.
And then a person who lacks grace is a hypocrite. Are you a hypocrite?
Well, that's an important question. All right. I'm going to introduce Corrine Farrago. She's the founder of LoveSexAndDesire.com. She's a sex coach, sex blogger, speaker, and certified relationship coach. For the last 12 years, Corrine has been teaching couples how to deepen their trust and connection by talking about sex openly and honestly. Through their work with Corrine, couples learn how to explore their erotic minds and expand their erotic menus. Her couples discover for themselves that communication is the foundation of intimacy, and sexual polarity is the cornerstone of passion and desire. Most importantly, Corrine models how to approach sex and intimacy with curiosity and positivity as she guides her couples through whatever obstacles are holding them back from having the kind of sexual connection and intimate connection they long for. Corrine is creator of Your Erotic Menu, ebook and online communication exercise for couples, which can be found on her website. Corrine is a member of World Association of Sex Coaches and National Coalition of Sexual Freedom and the American Council of Hypnotists Examiners. She lives in San Francisco Bay Area and speaks to couples online throughout the U.S. and internationally. So we're so blessed to have with us today Corrine Fargo. If Fargo. I got it right now. Fargo. Corrine Fargo. Welcome, Corrine, to the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Corrine is a sex and relationship coach, so she knows a thing or two about what couples need to sizzle things up some, huh?
Yeah, I like your name, Sizzling Hot Marriage. This says so much about where you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, why? I think I heard someone the other day say that back in the 50s and that generation, they expected the sizzle to leave after a few years, and they were actually okay with just existing in the relationship, and actually were okay with their husband having additional lovers. But I don't think that's the case anymore. Do you think so, Corrine? Is it as to have things changed?
Yes, um, things are changing, just like everything else in the world. Every field of endeavor, sex therapy and working with couples around their sexuality is evolving too. Um, when I was a young person, sexual education was kind of about techniques and positions, maybe, and how to get sexy in the bedroom with your partner in a very kind of basic way. But the conversation around sexuality now has evolved into a much deeper conversation, and I think much more real, and um, and it calls on us to think more deeply about who we are as erotic beings, as individuals, and who we are as a couple. Um, what is our sexuality? What is our eroticism? What leads us to arousal and therefore fulfillment in being together?
Those are some real good questions. How did you get into this anyway?
I feel like I've been doing this work all my life. um, I would talk to friends about their sexuality when I was in my early 20s. Um, I came into sex, when I was a teenager, um, outside of marriage. Uh, and it's been an evolving journey for me all my life, really. I've had different relationships throughout my life, most all of them long term, and each relationship has had a different sexual chemistry, a different energy. Um, I made a lot of mistakes when I was young, along with my young husband. We didn't know that much about how to keep things sexy and hot between us. Like most couples, we just went along and experienced the same problems that any long term relationship suffers, and that is getting into routines, over familiarity, maybe even not enough differentiation in the relationship
Mm-hmm.
to keep things polarized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are all really important things for couples to understand and learn about. This is
Mm-hmm.
adult sex education, right? We got
Mm-hmm.
whatever we got when we were in high school. Many of us not very good sex education, but this is adult sex education. And when I work with couples, they go deeper into what it is they want, who they are authentically, and having really open, honest conversations about sex with their partner, which is a learning process in and of itself.
When we talk about sex, Corrine, do you is is there a difference between sex and intimacy? Can you talk about that a little bit? What is your definition of intimacy? What is your definition of sex? Can you talk about that a little bit? That sex and intimacy. We're talking about building and maintaining intimacy in your marriage during this 21-day challenge. So, kind of talk a bit about the difference. Is there a difference?
Yeah, sex and intimacy. Well, I think you and I were joking, before we started recording about sex and relationship, and the two can happen, separately from each other. Um, but intimacy is something that isn't necessarily felt in a relationship. It can be lost along the way. Um, Intimacy is it's it's making yourself available emotionally, and allowing your partner to see inside of you, you know to see what's going on the inside, to be vulnerable. um, it creates trust, and it creates a sense of safety, and I feel that both of those things are important for sexuality to be at its fullest
Mm,
experience.
mm-hmm,
That sense of trust and safety allows us to let go. It allows us to trust that we can enjoy our own pleasure within sex. Um, there's so many things that are important about intimacy and keeping that alive, and and that's what couples can learn as well.
mm-hmm. So you see couples that just have sex and don't have intimacy.
Yeah,
How does
yeah.
that how does that play out?
Well, usually that kind of sustained pattern of having sex without that kind of quality intimacy alive wears on a couple's connection, and sex can become um, rote, um, and kind of routine, so that
Mm,
that then leads to people losing interest in sex and desire dropping off, um, and initiation not happening, perhaps, or if it does, it's refused. These kinds of patterns that create that the tension at home. Um, that's what I like to help couples break through, so that they can heal some of that and process some of the
mm,
resentment that has built up over the years,
mhm,
perhaps,
mhm.
to rediscover each other erotically and sexually. Sometimes there's some healing to do, and that's the relationship coaching that I do.
Wow. So I mean that really says a lot. Um, it's kind of like sex can actually damage your relationship.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's not just the act of having sex. It's the act of expressing love through your body, and that's not an easy thing to do if you're not feeling it. You can't really fake it.
Right.
You can fake lying down and having sex, but you can't really fake
Right.
um, that intimacy and that love that
Yeah.
we're all looking for in sexual union.
So
Yeah.
how do you help couples find that when it has gone away?
Well, it starts with conversation and communication, right, Joe? I'm sure you're big on communication too. You can't not be big on communication when it comes to doing work with couples. Communication is where it's at, um, and being able to have those hard conversations and open your mouth and say what's real, say what's honest, and do it from a place of love and a desire to grow again as a team. So it's a mindset for a couple to do this kind of coaching. um, they want to I want them to show up with that unified um, um, purpose to have the best marriage they can, um, to go deeper in their love and connection, and through their sexuality as well. So how do I help them? Well, so yeah, it starts with an honest conversation about what's actually happening, what people really feel about what's happening, um, and then starting to talk about sex, which a lot of people are uncomfortable with, but within the context of a coaching environment and me there, a prompt with asking the right questions, they start to realize, oh yeah, talking about sex is actually easier than I thought, and it's fun, and it's fun to do with my partner. Once the relationship is feeling connected, then conversations about sex can be enjoyable and exploratory, um, and fun and playful. I always like to remind people of that. Sex can be playful, and it should be, within a marriage.
And that play is so easy for that playfulness to go away in marriage. I mean, life happens, I guess, and you have children, and that playfulness. Life happens, and it gets serious.
Yeah,
And that playfulness, I guess, it's hard to be serious and playful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we get so stuck in routines of how we are sexual with our partners. I like to give couples homework, in between sessions, and just lay out exercises for them to do together that are sensual and erotic, so that they have something tangible that's different to do, and they come together to do this. I call it an exercise, an intimacy exercise, or a touch exercise, erotic exercise, even. They have something new to do. And that creates this feeling of novelty, which is
Yeah.
so important in our love relationships, to
Mm.
have that constant novelty, something new, something just to keep us on our toes, something we're learning together and exploring. That's what starts to create the
Yeah.
sizzling again.
Yeah. I mean, I hear so many couples, really talk about how boring, they're doing the same thing over and over again. And so it
Mhm.
really comes to a place that these exercises that you're talking about are really probably really helpful to introduce some newness, like you said, novelty. And that's an interesting concept. I was talking, John Gray did another interview with him, and he was talking about that novelty, how we get so used to things, and we the reason why we're attracted to others, even though they got the same equipment, it's the same thing, but it's new.
Yeah.
And why do you feel like we need so much newness and freshness? What's going on?
What's going on? Yeah, well, we're human, and our brains work a certain way. Um, and our brains like to get new information. They like to fire up new neurons. So somebody new comes into our space, and so here's the thing, Joe. Um, Somebody new comes into our space, and yes, there's a novelty of that person, but even more powerful than that is they will make us feel a certain way that we may be missing, um, because we're new to them too, right? So they can give us
Mm.
the juice, they can give us the energy, they can
Mm.
give us the full attention maybe that we
Yeah.
haven't been getting
Yeah.
from our partners, that kind of presence, that
Mm-hmm.
full attention,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and
That eye contact.
eye contact, compliments.
Yeah.
It's feeding
Yeah.
this hunger in us for that kind of
Mm.
feeling again, that somebody is giving us that juice.
Yeah.
So if we're not getting that juice at home from our
Mm-hmm.
partners on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis,
Mm-hmm.
and we go out and we get it from a stranger,
Right. Right.
it's going to turn our head.
Yeah. And that
And that's
you
when
need to,
it gets tricky.
Yeah, you use that word juice. That's a powerful word right there. I tell you, it is.
Yeah.
Wow. And I do a lot of work with couples who've had infidelity, and it really, and usually it's the guy. I mean, girls do it too, and but by far, men are more guilty of it. Um, and it never ceases to amaze me the remorse that many women go through,
Hmm.
acknowledging, that they really had not been juicing up their husband.
Yes.
It's interesting to see the phenomena of actually, after finding out about an affair, of of how sexual they become oftentimes for a period of time, at
Right.
least, after finding out. What do you think about? All right, Doc, I had to put her on hold for a second because I wanted to talk about what she's talking about right now, and that is, um, not juicing up the relationship. Um, First of all, any thoughts you have from what she's already said before we even talk about that?
Yeah, the one thing that kind of stuck out to me was that need for newness and how it really speaks to being spontaneous, doing things in your marriage. Because one of the things she said, we all have a desire for neurons, right? The new stuff. And so if you are being spontaneous in your marriage and you're changing things up, just maybe it could eliminate your partner having that desire to need some newness. Like maybe you can kind of keep the thrill going that way, since it's something that we all want and desire, to be looked at differently, to be touched differently, to be stroked differently, right? So again, just keeping your mind open, because we all have a need for newness. So yeah, absolutely. I think that was very important, because a lot of times in marriage, just being transparent, it gets boring. We check the block with sex, missionary. We did it. I have to give it to you. We did it. But expound on that. Take it beyond just checking the block and make it memorable, make it worth it. And so she definitely I stuck a pin in that one.
Yeah, it's kind of like work. Sometimes we can have a job, and it's a job. We go to work every day, we get paid, um, but there's really no passion there. It's just a job. That's in contrast to, you know work that you love, and it's passion, and while you're sleeping at night, you're dreaming about what you're going to do tomorrow. um, that's the difference between a work you just a job, and a work you're passionate about, in comparison to a marriage, with someone who, okay, you're married to, they're your spouse, but there's no passion there. And so we're just
Yeah.
kind of just going through the motions, and and that sucks.
Yeah. I heard someone say one time, if you do something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Hmm.
Imagine if you're doing someone you love, your
Hmm.
marriage, and the sex will never feel like
Right.
work,
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right.
So
And
interesting.
I mean, and that's the clinch. I mean, that's what, if you think about it, when you decided to marry this person, you had come to the conclusion that this person has everything I want. Uh, at least the essential elements of what I want, enough that I'm willing to covenant the rest of my life to. And so obviously there was some desire, there was some passion. I mean, I guess people do get married without that, but I would dare say the far majority of us have that passion when we make that covenant. The problem is maintaining it, keeping it fresh. And I think a lot of couples just are not prepared to do what it takes to keep that passion alive. They don't have the communication skills. They don't have the uh, vulnerable, the self confidence to be vulnerable, to have intimacy. Um, that A person cannot complain to them about them, trying to talk about a problem, trying to talk about a need that needs to be met without them getting upset. And so that intimacy, that vision, that dream for this close connection over time, and sometimes very quickly, goes away because those essential elements of intimacy are not there, and as a result, passion goes away. And so it's so important for couples to be prepared for marriage. But I don't know.
And not only that, like, it is not taboo. You know, we always talk about the stigma around mental health. There's such a stigma around a great sex life. Like we grown. You know, I know that that's not correct English, but we grown. And that's the same approach we need to have to sex. Like, that's your husband, that's your wife. Like, get it in. You know what I mean? And those are the things that you sit down at your desk later on, you know, and you remember how good he or she performed. It sends the chill down your spine. It entices your memory of that person. It entices your love for that person. It just brings on a new sense of like, oh yeah. But we have to stop seeing sex as like an embarrassing thing. It's the right that we have to be married. It's your God-given right to have fun. You know, you know, my grandma would always refer to it as doing the nasty. There's nothing that. I digress.
Right. I mean, so you're speaking of the shamefulness, the reluctance to enjoy it. You know,
absolutely,
that is a problem for a lot of people. Absolutely. But the other side of that, the underside of that, is our enjoying our relationship.
Absolutely.
And if our relationship is good and we are on the same page and we are enjoying each other, then that's important. So you can have either one of those problems, right? You can have a great relationship, really.
Right.
And deep connection, vulnerability with each other. And your sex life sucks. Because one person is ashamed or feels like, you know, that's too much, you know, or their own personal issues regarding around sex. So that's, you know, that's why it's important for couples to be able to talk about this. And sometimes it's hard to articulate.
And not only that, like that's another reason why you should wait until you're very mature enough to be in a place, because conversing about sex comes with maturity in my mind. Like you know, it's nothing wrong with it. So when you put yourself in a predicament where, look, you do it this way, and I would really prefer, because knowing yourself, loving yourself means you know what you want and you're not afraid to ask for what you want. But once again, that comes with self-love, self-esteem, and maturity. You know, like when I was younger, I you know, somebody did something to me and I was like, I won't even speak to it because I'm not a confrontational person. I don't want any beef. I'm gonna grill it up and eat it instead. And so whereas now I've learned how to communicate, like, this bothers me, I don't like this, because I realize if I'm able to communicate, hey, you're doing it this way, can you do it this way? Because now you're going to get a better response out of me. And in turn, you're going to be happy, because a pleased person doesn't have a problem with pleasing the other person.
Right. And see, that just takes me back to this idea of waiting, you know, till you're mature, waiting till you are married to have sex. Because if you start having sex before you're mature enough to articulate what you need, what you want, what you like, then you're going to be basically trying to please someone else 100% of the time.
Of the time. Amen.
And so it's really important. And so what happens as people grow up and get older, and they begin to be like, I don't like this. Man, y'all been married for 10 years. Well, now you're going to introducing new concepts. Like,
and then it makes that person think, where are you learning this from? You know,
right, and they'll also say, I've been this way all this time. You know, this is how you married me. You know,
yeah,
it's rough.
And so that's
man.
why you have to be honest with yourself when it comes to sex. You know, I read this blog once, and this lady was speaking to how her husband sucked at oral sex, and she loved it to the point where she ended up like divorcing him. You know, and you know, hindsight 2020, like someone asked, like, did you ever tell him? And she was like, I shouldn't have to tell him. And in my mind, I was like, why wouldn't you tell him? Like, how is he supposed to fix something that he doesn't know is broken? And so, and once again, kind of like, you know, what the guest speaker said, the foundation of good sex and intimacy is communication.
Right.
So it's just important. It's just so important. And
you got to talk about it.
Absolutely.
You know, I know couples. I know this couple. Her husband had a car accident, and he lost, you know, all his abilities in that department. But because they were able to talk about it, they were able to figure out how to take care of those needs.
Absolutely.
So if you don't talk about it, folks, you ain't gonna never figure it out. And so that sometimes you might need a little help. And that's when you call a Joe Folletti or a Dr. Saitik Davis to say, hey, help us talk through this thing, because we're having a hard time. And that's what we do. We help you talk through it and work through some of those issues that may be standing in the way of you having a great sex life. So that's what we want to. We want you to have a sizzling hot marriage. You can. Everybody can have a sizzling hot marriage. If you want one, if you're willing to do the work, you can have it.
Absolutely.
What's his name? He says, what you focus on, you cause to happen. What you focus on, you cause to happen. Dave Ramsey says that. And I totally believe it. And I see all the couples that come into our our office. Man, they are struggling. They have had some terrible things happen. They have gotten a bad reputation with each other, but they have determined and decided that they're going to save their marriage. And man, it's just amazing to watch the process. It's work. It takes time. But boy, you keep focusing on
what in life doesn't, isn't work. It isn't take time. And I think people have to have that same mindset when it comes to your marriage. Like, especially sex. It's work. It takes time.
That's right. And unfortunately, some people just aren't willing to invest in their marriage.
Absolutely. It's
just not that important to them. And so, and so that marriage goes by on the wayside, or you just live miserably. You don't have to do that, folks. I just tell you right now, you don't have to live that way. It can be better. Dr. Davis, it's been a wonderful time. We're going to finish Corrine's interview next week. Yeah, time is up already. But we're going to finish her up tomorrow. So she's some good stuff. We didn't get to talk any more about that topic. We're going to talk some more tomorrow. So hopefully folks will join us tomorrow, 12 noon Central Standard Time, for our next show. And also go online and sign up for the Valentine's Day 21-day sizzle challenge. That thing is sizzling hot, so make sure you get in there and get that sizzle going in the sizzle challenge.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So go to sizzlinghotmarriage.com and you can sign up there. All right, well, that's it for today. Awesome. Dr. Davis, blessings on you. Looking forward to tomorrow and the next as we continue this talk about sex in marriage and how that's a big part of building about intimacy.
Sex, baby.
All right. Well, you take care. We'll talk to you later. Everybody have a good day.
Goodbye, good people.